Today in the EU, power moves in EU Parliament, committee claims, and chair votes. It's a busy summer for the European Parliament, with this week seeing the formation of committees and MEPs voting on the committee chairmanship on Tuesday, 23rd of July. The major political groups in Parliament are already staking their claims on committees that align with their policy proposals and are collaborating to create a cordon sanitaire, ensuring they solidify their power in the legislative meetings of this new mandate. But which committees are the most important? Who wants them? And what can we expect in terms of chairmanship? To break down the committee's importance and the role that is to come with the new mandate, we spoke with Aurélie Pugnet. Hello and welcome. I am Evikiori, and this is Today in the EU. Aurélie, we're here today to talk about the formation of the new committees of the European Parliament. In a nutshell, what are the committees and why are they important?
The committees are very important in the European Parliament because this is where the legislative work is being done, and this is where the MEPs, the Member of Parliament, sit and so work on the text. They amend it, they debate it, they vote it before it goes to the plenary. And usually a vote within the committee, for example, Foreign Affairs Committee, Environment Committee, Internal Market Committee, Energy Committee, this vote is usually a good way to see how the plenary vote is going to do. So if you see that the package goes through very easily in committee, you know that there's a high chance that the legislation will also go through very easily in plenary, because all the committees are created according to the number of seats that each party and each group has within the parliament. So it's like a mini parliament.
And besides forming the committees, we also have the election of each committee's chair. What do we know about this so far?
What we do know about the chairs of each committee is that it is a very political process. So not only is it the person coming from a group that has to be assigned as chair, but also the naming of the person is very important. For example, if you think about the subcommittee on security and defense, there was discussion as to whether within the Renew group, within the Liberal group, would this person be a French or a German? And at the end of the day, it looks like it's the German that's going to get ahead of it and is actually going to take the posting. And that is due to internal negotiations, because the French would have another position, but also the French also hold the group's lead, the chairmanship of the group, the presidency. So you can see that it's a lot of internal negotiations within the groups as such. And all the names will be revealed. It starts at 9 a.m. today and it will go on until 2 p.m. I would say let's all keep an eye on what the far right, the patriots and sovereignists are saying after this, because they will obviously be rebelling against those discussions and their exclusion from the deals.
Now, going back to the formation, we have committees that are usually claimed by the parties that have the most seats in Parliament. If we were to talk about the top 5 of the most wanted committees, which ones would they be?
So the most wanted committees are basically which ones you see are the biggest. So we're talking about the Foreign Affairs Committee that has almost 80 MEPs in it. They discuss current development, current affairs, when they talk about big issues like what is the support of Ukraine going to look like. Then you have 3 other ones, I would say, that are quite big, which are the environment one, so ENVI committee, which is in charge of environment, public health, food safety. And it's obviously very important because the Green Deal, so the flagship project of the previous commission, where von der Leyen proposed legislation to go towards climate neutrality and carbon emission cuts, that takes place in this committee. So people are very much interested in following up on the implementation of it. Another one that is very important is the one that focuses on industry, research, and energy. So that's ITRE, which also seats 90 people. That is actually 12 more than in the previous term. So you can see how important this committee is going to be. And that is because we talk a lot about industrialization of the continent. We talk a lot about energy sufficiency and things like this, or research when it comes to developing new tech, for example, that were not available on the continent and for which the Europeans are very much reliable on other countries. And for example, we can also talk about employment or economic committees. These are the most attractive one at the moment.
You know, this process sounds like a lengthy one. Do you see any surprises or do we know already what to expect?
We do know that obviously the parties that have a specific interest in mind, so for example, if you think about the socialists, obviously they're going to be interested in
Mhm.
imprinting certain committees with a more maybe socialist idea, and they want to have a say in that committee that is a bit stronger. So we do know certain things, which are, for example, that AFET, so the Foreign Affairs Committee, will still be chaired most likely by a centre-right person. This is David McAllister. He's already been chairing it for the past 5 years.
Ladies and gentlemen, the world is going through a period of geopolitical redefinition. The issues raised by Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine go far beyond the tragic situation we are currently witnessing. Europe as a whole is challenged. For a very long time, our Parliament has been advocating for a stronger, more effective and more coherent common foreign, security and defence policy. Now, Russia's war against Ukraine shows us that the European Union has to equip itself urgently with the means and tools to respond to global strategic competition and also complex security threats,
said MEP David McAllister, mentioning why security and defense is important.
He's very well known, very respected, so he's most likely to also get it. And so with that, his party, and we know also that committee of budget, which is going to be very important because the Commission is going to propose a new budget within the next 5-year term in 2025, most likely. So that one, the budget and the Agri Committee, these two are requested by ECR, which are the Conservatives. Employment, the Committee on Employment, which is quite a social rights committee, is requested by the left, which is the far left group. So you can see also that the internal market one, IMCO, the Greens eye it. And that says a lot about what their priorities are and when they want to chair or impact maybe a little bit the debate.
And since you already mentioned the far right, the biggest part, like the Patriots, that has already been formed and has quickly claimed the third spot as the largest parliamentary force, what kind of influence or claims might they have on the committees?
So the committee chairs are voted by the people sitting in that committee. What that means is that if the far right, let's talk about, for example, the Patriots, which are the third biggest group, which you mentioned. If they are the third biggest group in parliament, they will also be the third biggest force in that committee. So they have a huge impact in nominating the chair. So if they want the chair, they obviously give that person a lot of votes all of a sudden at once. And what we see is that is the same thing that happened last week and last year, actually, or like last term, actually. So you can see that the far right parties are excluded from the deal because the parties that are forming the centrist alliance, so centre right party, socialists, liberals, the Greens, and even actually the ECR, so the Conservative parties, where Giorgia Meloni's Fratelli d'Italia is seating, that those are actually likely to get all the chairs. So actually, these parties are creating a bloc in voting for themselves and their own candidates and not for the far right parties, which should actually get some chairs. So you can see that this cordon sanitaire, we call it, that still holds and is keeping far right parties out of the deals.
And speaking of cordon sanitaire, what exactly do we mean with this term?
Cordon sanitaire is an informal agreement between the centrist parties, let's call them that, according to which you don't deal with the far right. So what this means is that when a far right person should become chair of a committee, actually all those parties, or as many as they can, meet or agree together ahead of time on, okay, we're going to vote for this person instead of the far right because they want to make sure that the chairmanship won't go to the far right. They want to make sure that it stays in the hands of the centrist majority. This is just possible because they can just arrange the votes ahead of time. This is what happened in 2019, and this is most likely what is expected to happen this time around. We saw last week that it happened with the vice presidencies and that the far right didn't get any votes posting in the end. So that it is likely to be repeated this week and today, but let's see what actually does come out of it.
Right. In claiming committees and chairs, who do you see collaborating?
Obviously, the parties that create the centrist alliance, so the centre-right, the socialists, and the liberals are most likely to be working together on that front, as well as the Greens, so putting all of those four together. What we can't forget is that part of the centre-right, so the EPP, is very conservative or has turned very conservative over the past term. And so they are also interested in working with the ECR party, the ECR group, which we often call the Conservatives. So the ECR is also getting thrown into this alliance, and so is the left, which is the far left group. So they are working together to exclude the patriots, the sovereignists, and the non-affiliated don't get seats either.
And there was some unfinished business from the previous mandate, with some policy files not being completed. What can we expect regarding those? And when do the committees start their work?
There are a lot of policy files that are still indeed on the table as they are being still discussed and amended in the parliament. When the parliament ended its last session in April, so the last term, they weren't finished with everything, or there are files that had not reached them yet. And so obviously the new parliament is going to have to pick up on it. So this week, we also expect some rapporteurs to be assigned on certain files. That is also part of the discussions at the moment, so that they can start the work very, very fast, or as fast as they want, or as fast as they can over the summer, but also in September when the sessions really start again.
Okay, so we get to work.
Said Roberta Metsola after her election, inviting her colleagues within the EU Parliament to start working as soon as possible.
For example, there's big work expected on the pharma package, or also when we talk about tech, we talk about end-to-end encryption, for example, or to counter child pornography. Or we can expect also work on everything that is related to the implementation of the Green Deal, and there is still a lot of files on how to have a more green and sustainable future that are still in the hands of the Parliament or expected to come there soon. And also there's files on the development of the defense industry and how can the EU subsidize that. There's a long, long list, which we've actually reported on Euractiv, where we explain which are the biggest files that are still upcoming and how important they are. And the Parliament is definitely not going to have a restful summer, that is for sure.
Thank you very much, Aurélie. I am Evi Kiori, and this was Today in the EU podcast. Visit Euractiv to stay on top of the latest news. If you haven't subscribed yet, you can find us on all streaming platforms. You can get in touch with us by leaving a comment or a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Your reviews help us a lot to spread the word about our work, but also understand what topics you like listening to. This episode was produced by Miriam Sáenz de Tejada, Nicoleta Yonta, and me. Thank you for tuning in, and until tomorrow morning. As part of our commitment to accuracy, inclusion and transparency, Euractiv is part of the Trust Project.